camera and just getting set up.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency meeting for May 14th. We have a quorum, so let's do some introductions for the record. I'm Jim Cooper, Chair from the City of Olympia. Greg.
Hi, Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner and Vice Chair.
Okay, still real loud, just so you know. Mike.
Hello, Mike French, Clallam County Commissioner.
Randy.
Randy Netherland, Mason County Commissioner.
Georgia.
Georgia Miller, Grays Harbor County Commissioner.
And Emily.
Emily Klaus, Thurston County Commissioner.
Okay, and then Jeff, will you introduce the staff?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Johnston, ORCAA Executive Director, also joined here in the room by Mike Schultz, Compliance Manager, Rob Weiland, Inspection Supervisor, and also Air Monitoring Backup, sitting in for Odell Hadley today. Tyson Justice, Financial Services Manager, Debbie Moody, Operations Manager, Tiffany Flores, Record Specialist and ORCAA Public Records Officer. And running Zoom upstairs, we've got Dan Nelson, ORCAA's Communications Manager, and Bryson Downs, Air Quality Specialist 2, and backup IT support is also listening in.
Okay. Alphabet Jeff, will you introduce yourself?
Jeff Myers, Legal Counsel at Law Lyman.
Great. Thank you. All right. So then for our agenda, we just want to add one item under reports. So under director's reports, immediately following the executive director, we'll have our counsel, Jeff Myers, update us on a legal case that's going on and some updates there. And so if that is okay, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay. Motion in a couple seconds. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to reports. I'll just do a couple of quick ones and then I'll turn it over to Greg for Finance Committee report. So a reminder that we have our first roundtable item on the agenda today. So we're gonna have just an open opportunity for folks to bring something from their community, maybe related to air, maybe not, that could be of regional significance, and kind of use, an amount of time based on where we are in the schedule when we get to that point. So I'll do my best to facilitate, and then knowing today that we want to try to have at least a 20, if not a 30-minute executive session so we can finish our review on our executive director. And then meeting schedule. So Jeff and I are looking at the calendar, and if it makes sense to and is okay with the board, as a reminder, our bylaws require us to meet 10 times per year. And so we're looking at skipping July and September. So looking at that schedule with staff and the timing of all of the things that we need to get done by the end of this year, a little bit different to not do one in the dead of winter, but that actually works a lot better for staff if the board is willing to, well, if the board is willing to have a meeting in December for when it would be my last meeting, so.
Yeah, and Dan has the agenda planner for fiscal year 2026 up. And again, our proposal is to skip July and September.
Yeah. So any issues with that? Everybody okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so let's go forth in that way. And Greg, tell us about the Finance Committee.
Okay. Is my volume a little better now?
We'll handle it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm in a car for another 30 minutes. Then I'll turn the camera back on. So I could defer to Jim if this is, giving people headaches. But the Finance Committee, as always, had a robust conversation. We were all there with our newest member, Mike French, joining Randy and Jim and I, as well as Jeff and Tyson. And we talked about and made a motion for the budget amendment that is before you today. which is really, I think Jeff Myers will talk to it a little bit later about some legal fees above and beyond what was budgeted that we need to accommodate for, that we can accommodate with some unexpended budget capacity on the salary side. We also had a big conversation about what is our policy about when to bring a budget amendment forward, and robust conversation on that. And we're going to, just to make it easy for Tyson, kind of try to dig out the official policy, which is more of a convention than a policy at this point, and discuss it at our August finance meeting. As we discussed last meeting, with the fiscal year 26 budget is in front of you guys today. We're going to have a presentation from Tyson on that. But no changes since the last time that we looked at it, so we didn't discuss it a whole lot. You know, it bears mentioning that we're digging into our contingency both this year and projecting to next year as well. We've got some large capital expenditures like the database update that we're talking about, and we'll talk about a little bit today. But I know that Jeff's performance self-assessment, some of the big goals that he's going to work on are finding that financial sustainability that is a challenge right now as costs continue to go up. So we discussed some of the options and strategies to ameliorate that negative expense versus revenue line for the next couple of years. But we're all, you know, I think Randy even said, you know, comfortable with it, not concerned, because we're, you know, it's budgets often look like this. So we are happy to bring this budget forward to you. It is already open for public comment as well. And I believe that is the report that I had prepared, unless Jim or Randy or Mike or anyone wants to add anything else.
Any additions or questions for Greg?
Naive and Randy comment. But it's true. I am that guy. I get it. What I was pointing
That's
out
a
in the
bumper
meeting
sticker.
is there's always things that look like certain things. There's always a storm in the future coming, but it's how we react to it. And this particular organization has always reacted well to it. We've always kept it on the horizon and kept it from affecting us today. So it doesn't create the same fear as it would in other organizations. Most importantly, we do see it, and we are paying attention to it, and we are reacting to it. It's not just sitting there static.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on, I'll just add that Joan Cathy from the city of Tumwater has joined us. Welcome, Joan. Good to see you. Okay, so that takes us to public comment. Do we have any public commenters, Dan?
We do not have anybody at the meeting and have not received any comments that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you for anticipating my question. Okay, so then that takes us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, or polls? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to the unfinished business item, which is the 2026 draft budget highlights. We're going to you or Tyson?
Actually, I think I'm going to hand it over directly to Tyson. I'll just say that, yeah, I'll just hand it directly over to Tyson.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, can you pull up my presentation, please?
Do that.
So this presentation wasn't part of the board packet that went out, but we'll make sure that you have it. What you have connected to the agenda is the 25-page briefing document that the presentation kind of summarizes. But do encourage everybody to also look at that 25-page document, and just notice that there's a table of contents on there, so you can easily jump through the different components of that. Are you working to get the presentation up, Dan?
I am sorry, I had Odell's keeps wanting to jump up.
Way to go, Odell.
He's reaching out all the way from now.
And how's that?
It's
There we
good,
go.
except for it's not in presentation mode. If you can just,
There you go. Perfect.
there we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Yep, so I've today prepared a little presentation for the board today. Just going briefly over the fiscal year 26 budget. PK, next slide, please. So the major budget priorities for fiscal year 26 are making progress on achieving a cost neutral position for agency programs, maintaining competitive wages and salaries for staff for the purposes of retaining current staff and attracting new staff as needed, and investing in systems which improve current business processes. Next slide. We've identified two budgetary challenges facing ORCAA during fiscal year 26. One being unknown changes to federal funding, and the second being a projected operating budget shortfall during the fiscal year. Next slide, please. For fiscal year 26, we are estimating revenues at 2.9 million and expenditures at 3.5 million. This results in a net operating loss of $580,000. We plan on drawing from the general fund approximately $446,000 to cover this estimated loss. When comparing to last year's budget figures, revenues are down 0.69% and expenditures are up 4.37%. The decrease in projected revenue is a combination of increases and decreases in select funding sources and programs. The increase in projected expenditures is mainly due to the planned purchase of a new database. We have earmarked $150,000 for development costs of the new database. Funding shall be allocated from the database committed fund into the general fund to cover these costs. The new database will be replacing an existing database which is developed in-house over 10 years ago. We are anticipating the replacement of the database will result in process efficiencies across the agency. Next slide, please.
Do you want to pull for any question, or do you want to take questions while you're all?
Sure. If you have any questions, feel free to interject at any time. Funding sources. Funding sources for ORCAA is made up of grants, fees, assessments, and others such as rent and interest income. As our largest source of revenue, fees is 49% of the overall revenue for ORCAA at $1.4 million. Of the fee programs, our Title V program is the largest with estimated revenues of $670,000. Within fee revenue, we see slight increases in projected revenue for asbestos, land clearing, and a decrease in notice of construction revenue. For federal and state grant revenue, we are predicting no increase over last year, with one exception being federal core. As a response to federal funding uncertainty, we chose to reduce the estimated federal core revenue by 20%, which roughly equates to $60,000. Another significant revenue source are assessments, which make up 19% of the overall revenue at $575,000. Unlike other revenue sources, which may be reimbursements or a flat fee, the assessments are formula driven and are based upon the population of our jurisdiction. Other revenue sources include penalties, interest, and tenant rents. Due to our sizable fund balance, interest revenue has averaged $10,000 per month during fiscal year 25. However, as we draw down on our general fund to cover operation deficiencies, interest income will also decrease. Next slide, please. At 75% of the total expenditures, payroll remains as the largest agency expense. We are estimating $2.6 million in payroll expenditures during fiscal year 26. This includes a 2.3% cost of living adjustment to salaries and wages, anticipated step increases, and estimated increase in benefit costs. When compared to last fiscal year, estimated payroll expenditures have dropped by roughly 3.3%. This is due to not backfilling the vacant financial specialist position during fiscal year 26. For non-payroll expenditures, we see a substantial increase in estimated expenditures. This is contributable to the planned purchase of the database. When discounting the database purchase, non-payroll expenditures drop year over year as well by roughly 3.2%. Next slide, please. Represented on this slide are all funds assigned by the agency. Funds are assigned by agency need or external mandates. The contingency fund is calculated at 20% of the budget, not including Title V expenditures. It is meant to cover approximately 2 to 3 months of operating expenditures if the need were to arise. As operating expenditures increase, so does the expense contingency fund. Title V contingency is a restricted fund, which will only cover Title V cost overruns. For fiscal year 26, we have reduced the fund balance to $50,000 with plans to bring the funding level up to $60,000 for future years. As you can see, there is a $150,000 reduction in the database fund for the planned purchase of the new database. The $150,000 is now represented as a non-payroll expenditure in the operating budget for fiscal year 26. Discounting all of the committed, restricted, and assigned funds, this leaves approximately $2.5 million left as unassigned. How these unassigned funds are spent are at the discretion of the agency with approval from the board. Next slide, please. So for fiscal year 26, key proposed budget items we are requesting the board to consider are the funding of 18 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff, a 2.3% cost of living adjustment to wages and salaries, a 2.3% increase to program fees and assessments, with an additional increase to the land clearing burn permit fees from $130 to $275 per acre. An allocation of $150,000 from the committed database fund into the general fund, continued agency coverage of employee portion of paid family medical leave and employee L&I workers comp, continued agency coverage of employee subscriber health insurance premiums and partial coverage for dependents. And lastly, the purchase of an electric fleet vehicle for the agency. Next slide, please. So this is a rough calendar of what's remaining for approving or adopting the fiscal year 26 budget. Please review your fiscal year 26 budget packets before our next board meeting. The budget packets contain much more detailed information on our fiscal year 26 budget. As a reminder, we plan on adopting the budget during our June 11th board meeting. So please communicate any questions or concerns regarding the budget before then. Questions or concerns can be directed to Jeff or I. That's it. Any questions?
Questions for Tyson? What a great job bringing 25 pages down to 10 slides. Thank you.
That was awesome.
That was really clear.
Yeah, nice work, Tyson.
So, yeah, really, this is our time to do a little bit of deliberation, and we can do more next month when we consider the budget. But if there's questions you have or concerns or any line item that you want to dig into, this is a really good opportunity to start making sure that we know what the questions that need to be answered either before or after the public hearing are. Okay. So then I'll just restate what Tyson said. If you have questions or thoughts, please try to get them to Jeff and him before the June meeting, so that we can process through them and make sure that we answer them properly for you and for the public before the public hearing. Otherwise, we will proceed to public hearing at the June meeting and consider the budget immediately following.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay. So then, hearing nothing else on the 2026. Actually, I said it at the beginning, but I'll say it again. Good job, Tyson. This has been a great morning of finance for me, and I know already that the position is in really good hands. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so then that takes us to new business, which is a small budget amendment for this year's budget in the final quarter. So is that?
So again, Tyson, I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Kick it right to Tyson.
So Dan, do you mind pulling up the budget amendment summary document again? And then, yeah, skip the narrative and just go down to the numbers. So This amendment, so we're requesting a budget amendment for fiscal year to the fiscal year 25 budget. This amendment is just reallocating $65,500 from salaries into professional services to cover costs for the Friends of Grays Harbor case. The reallocation from salaries is made possible from unplanned staff departures. During the year, we had 3 employees leave the agency, and that subsequently created a large amount of budgetary slack in the salaries and budgeted salaries. So, yep. That's all.
Okay. And so just that, Greg alluded to this at the beginning, but I just want to, insert it in here again. The finance committee is really talking about what should be our threshold if we have a specific written policy for staff adjustments versus board approved adjustments within a budget year, and whether that has to do with us, one line to another, one section to another, or the whole budget. We believe that our practice for the foreseeable past, that's not the right way to say that, but our recent practice has been to bring it to the board at a 10% shift or above. And so we're looking to figure out if that's written anywhere, and then have the finance committee consider what a policy might look like to come back to the board. But otherwise, the finance committee recommends this and sees it as a very simple shift. And we know that Jeff's going to update us soon on his cost recovery of this funding. So,
What about cost recovery?
Okay, so any questions about the amendment? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the 2025 budget amendment as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, a motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I'm counting that as an aye, not an opposed aye, Randy, just so, okay, good. Okay, so motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So you have your direction.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for doing that. And the next, that takes us to the executive director update.
Okay, well, got a few things wanted to update you all on before handing it over to Jeff for a quick update. So just first, I'll just mention that I was given 30 minutes on the agenda at an all-staff meeting for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Department on April 30th. So it was a great opportunity to meet with the full about 150 people, talk about ORCAA and the important work that we do, and strengthen our relationship. We work very closely, particularly with the Environmental Health Division of this department. I had a lot of great questions. It was just a great discussion. Dan attended with me. And so again, I welcome the opportunity to reach out to partners like this. So if any of you have suggestions about who we should be reaching out to and meeting with, please keep those suggestions, or, please send those suggestions to me or to Dan. Let's see, update on ORCAA's database project. Tyson talked a little bit about that during his budget presentation. So again, as you probably remember, the agency did issue a request for proposals on March 3rd. Proposals were due on April 12th. We received 28 proposals. So a large number, great response. It is taking us a little longer than we had anticipated to sort through them. We weren't anticipating getting that many, but there are some really strong proposals, and a number of them with experience working with agencies just like ORCAA. So we're really excited about that. We're hoping to select a vendor in June, and then have so we'll be scheduling presentations and demos in June, hoping to sign a contract then in July, and then start implementing the work soon after that. Another thing wanted to mention is you've heard us talk, I can't remember, it was me, I've probably mentioned that we had applied for a grant fund or grant from the Secretary of State's office to assist with some scanning. We found out yesterday, unfortunately, Tiffany got an email yesterday that we weren't selected for that, but they only awarded 27. They received over 140 applications, and so they funded 27 of them. So it was very competitive. So we'll probably try again next year, but thank you, Tiffany, for getting that application submitted, and we'll keep trying to get the grant funding.
It was very tight,
Yes.
How much do you ask for?
50,000. And the scanning project they quoted us was 53 and some change. And there was over $3 million requested in all of their grant cycle. And so I was like, so I get to scan, it's good.
Should get an intern.
So just a few legislative updates in terms of state funding. Of course, the legislature has gone home. I'm still waiting for governor to take action on the budget. I think he has until May 20th. But what the legislature passed was full funding of our wood smoke reduction grant. So we're expecting similar size grant program in the coming biennium, which is good. And expecting our state core grant to remain roughly at the same size. They'll say that things are a lot more uncertain when it comes to federal funding. Again, as Tyson alluded to earlier, we did put a 20% reduction into our federal core grant. We are fully funded through this federal fiscal year, but again, we do not know what's going to happen next federal fiscal year. The administration released, as you might have seen on May 2nd, they released a skinny budget proposal that Congress is now considering. In that proposal, they recommended eliminating over $1 billion of funding to state and local agencies, of which our 105 and 103 money would be part of. So again, have to see what Congress does with that. But again, so it very well might be that we have to eliminate that funding. And if that happens, we would be coming back to the board with a budget amendment because we would have to make some further adjustments. So we're keeping an eye on that. Another thing I wanted to mention, just regarding another thing that Congress is looking at that impacts air quality. So they're looking at disapproving Clean Air Act preemption waivers for California vehicle and engine regulations, using the Congressional Review Act to repeal those. So just wanted to make sure that folks are aware that that action won't just impact California, but many other states like Washington that have adopted California emission standards. And so that would, if Congress does take that action, that would increase emissions in our counties. In most of our counties, transportation related emissions are the largest source of emissions of particulates and NOx and other things. And so, and Dan will put in the chat, if you are interested in more information about this, the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, or NACA, has an analysis, and actually it specifically shows what the emission increase between now and 2040 would be in Washington State. So Dan, let me pull up the chat. There it is. All right, so yeah, so see that link if you want more information on that. And if you have any questions for me, because again, ORCAA doesn't directly regulate mobile sources, so it's not going to impact us, but it will impact the state. It's the state. So let's see. Then the last thing I would just mention is that some of you might have seen, I think it was in either the Olympian or it got some press release yesterday or the day before. U.S. News and World Report released their annual rankings of states, and they look at many different metrics, but Washington came in number 10 overall and number 5 in the category of air and water quality. So this is certainly due in part to the good work of state and local clean air agencies, clean air and water agencies. So just wanted to thank you for serving on the ORCAA board and for helping us do what we do to keep the air clean for the residents of Washington State. So with that, I think now I'll hand it over to Jeff to give just a quick update on where things stand with the Friends of Grays Harbor case.
Jeff, let me just see if there's any questions. Any questions for Jeff Meyer? Or sorry, Jeff Johnston?
Jeff Johnson.
I just had one so we've been talking about this at the city, like. Using the Endangered Species Act as a model, like if the Fed relaxes the interpretation of harm.
Right.
Is the state law as protective or not? And if not, do we need to write anything into city code to kind of keep the same way of practicing that we've had? And so that I'm just thinking about that, like if they relaxed or changed any federal rules adversely for, in our opinion, then just not change our date of reference for the federal law and keep it in the previous year.
Well, that's something, yeah, that we're looking at, because we typically we would bring our adopt by reference date forward. This like in July, I think, and so we could look at that. And I know, so there was conversation among the other Washington Air directors about, you know, should ecology move forward? Because there are state air quality standards in addition to federal air quality standards, but those state, like for instance, with PM 2.5, the state standard currently has the 12 micrograms per cubic meter for the annual standard rather than 9. And so the state's a little bit behind, but should they speed up the process of updating state rules so we could use? But so I think we're looking at those.
Okay.
And so, you know, so should there be like a state or a local regulation backstop to potential changes to federal regulations? So to some extent that might be an option, but other things like our Title V program, that's kind of a federal
We don't get to
program.
pick that.
Right. So it's gonna vary by program.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's really just complicated and like.
Yes.
I think so many places have gone to just citing the RCW or the CFR that we don't know how they actually overlap.
Right.
At least in a way that legislators and policymakers can understand.
Right, and that makes it a lot easier, so we don't have to then, every time there's a federal update, that we don't have to then catch up our local, regulation, but yes,
Okay.
it is a complex overlay of laws and regulations.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. And then we'll go then to our expert on all of that with an update on a legal case, Mr. Myers.
Well, this is an update on the appeal that is pending before the Pollution Control Hearings Board for the PNWRE pellet manufacturing mill that is proposed to be located in the city of Hoquiam. The permit was granted by ORCAA after a very extensive public comment and public hearing process. Was granted, was January was the hearing, and then it was May of 2024 when the permit was actually granted. It was appealed by several environmental groups, the Friends of Grays Harbor, the local Audubon in Grays Harbor, the Grays Harbor Waterkeeper, and the Natural Resource Defense Council. All are appellants. They're represented by an environmental public interest group known as Earth Justice. They appealed on several different grounds. Most notably, they're claiming that we underestimated the amount of emissions and therefore misclassified the facility as a minor source for toxic air pollutants. Our engineers did a tremendous amount of work on this project. We are confident that not only are the estimates and calculations done correctly, but that the emissions can be verified by testing that is required after the facility is built to verify that they will not exceed the permit limits that were placed on their facility. We've gone through a lot in this litigation, and I appreciate the budget amendment and the impact that unexpected legal bills can have on your budget. This particular case has had a lot of discovery. Earth Justice has staffed it with, I believe they have 4 lawyers working on the case. They initially moved for a stay. That was denied by the board. There was a lot of document discovery, production of documents that ORCAA primarily had to do. There were multiple depositions of key witnesses, including Lauren Wybrew and Mark Gooden, our former engineer, as well as an expert that is going to testify on behalf of the appellants. So we're all getting ready, and then the parties moved for summary judgment. The big legal bill was coming in responding to the summary judgment motions and in preparing our own summary judgment motion. Those motions were largely successful for ORCAA. We have received notice that our summary judgment motion is going to be granted as to the issues that ORCAA and PNWRE moved under the Ocean Resource Management Act, which is kind of like, is this going to impact the ocean resources and the shorelines? And under SEPA, the SEPA compliance has been granted for all but one issue, and it's unclear to me exactly why that was not granted. It has to do with the issue of whether ORCAA improperly relied on the SEPA determination that the lead agency, the city of Hoquiam, made. I don't understand why that wasn't granted, and we haven't seen a full decision yet, but summary judgment was also moved for by the appellants. It was denied as to all the grounds, I think primarily because there are factual questions as to how the calculations were done, and they want to see all the evidence there. We held a mediation to try to get the case settled. That mediation took place May 7th, and discussions sort of petered out by the end of the day, and the next day, trying to get things revived, it didn't seem like we could sustain the momentum that had been built throughout May 7th. So settlement is unlikely, but you never say never. And we head to a full hearing on May 28th, which will go through June 3rd. And we expect that we'll have our engineering staff testify and support the calculations that were made. And we're pretty confident that that permit will be affirmed. But again, that hearing is upcoming. So that's where the case sits at present. And I can't say enough about the engineering staff led by, Lauren Wybrew is the chief permit writer, and Jennifer DeMay is the engineer. They have gotten me tons of complex engineering information that we have had to distill down for the board so that it is understandable. And I think that the board has understood the issues very well. They denied the motion for a stay, which is an indication that they don't think it's likely that the appeal is going to be successful. And that is good for us. And then the denial of the summary judgment motion that the appellants brought indicates that they don't necessarily agree. I think it bodes well that our engineering judgment is going to be given deference and respect that it's owed under the law. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about status of things, costs of things, whatever you want to cross-examine the lawyer with.
I would just say, Grace Harbor's waiting on pins and needles to see how this plays out. Thank you for your work on this. It is very frustrating for us, as I'm sure other counties, to have friends putting really the end to business and development wanting to come to Grays Harbor, because every time industry wants to come here, they're met with this type of thing. And it does make me wonder if there was some kind of a collective front with counties to fight back from these lawsuits. When we have a situation where ORCAA has thoroughly vetted these application and gone through the process, done the due diligence, and so has this developer, it just seems it's very costly that we're having to fight for this business to come here. And it just seems that isn't there anything collectively we as counties can do to fight back? Can we sue these organizations back? So I don't know. It's just a very frustrating situation because we have had lots of business opportunity for Grays Harbor be shot down through just dragging this out through the court processes. And it's usually over regulation for clean air or something along those lines, environmental.
Clean air or wetlands this isn't the only case I have right now with Friends of Grays Harbor. There's a golf proposal in Westport that is the subject of other litigation, not related to air, but it is frustrating. It is difficult. It is part of the due process to which people feel that they are entitled when public health issues are at stake. The current law is not good about recovering costs. The Pollution Control Hearings Board doesn't have the authority to award attorney's fees. I have not seen proposals to try to mitigate those cost impacts. And it would be difficult because, concerned citizens want to have their ability to make sure that it's done right. And so there's a delicate balance that needs to be struck here.
And
Is there
when
any
we
chance
brought
that?
up Westport,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Georgia.
You brought up Westport and the golf course out at Westport. And what's interesting is if you look at their presentation, the word that kept coming to mind over and over again was thoughtful. They had really put a lot of thought into protecting and even repairing wetlands and thought about public impact and environmental impact, and yet still are being fought on it. And truly, their plan is very solid to check all those boxes. We have wetlands that have been encroached by this like scrub pine, so it's no longer the wetlands is shrinking significantly, and they want to go in there and restore the wetlands as part of the golf course. But no, that's not good enough.
No. And that conversation we probably will have another time, but
I'm sure. I'm sure. But thank you for your work that you're doing. We do appreciate it. And like I said, we're kind of waiting on pins and needles to see that's a significant impact for our community.
Jim, you had something?
I was just curious if discovery could be interpreted as a public records request.
They made public records requests.
So
on
then
top
we're
of
charging the full cost of public records for the whole case, even when the court asks for things. That's my.
Even in a public records context, you can only charge them, very minimal costs for providing records electronically, which is primarily the way the records are being produced these days.
Oh, I thought they had improved that billing by staff time now. My bad.
No, you can't. You can't bill for staff time for a public records request.
Got it. Sorry about wasting time. It's really sad though that just like the public records law, right? Talk about an unfunded mandate, right? It's great to be transparent and open, but when people worry about the cost of government and why you're cutting services, this is one of the reasons, right?
It's significant. I think one of the significant costs that you have here is the deposition time. Because for example, Lauren was deposed all day. She had to spend all weekend before her deposition preparing. She had to review the documents. She had to go back over the entire record and make sure she knew it cold, which she did.
And do her
But
day.
that's a tremendous amount of staff time for her. And then she's working with me throughout that process. So there is there is my time to help get her prepared, her time to prepare, time to go to the deposition, the cost of getting deposition transcript. It's a significant cost to do depositions of all the key witnesses. And, somebody's got to be footing that bill for the appellants too, because I assume they're not working for free, but. And I also know that the applicant, their legal bills are larger than ours.
Well, right, and that's the thing, like, all this money is getting spent just to drag it out, right? So, yeah. Okay, any other questions for Jeff? Thank you, and we're all feeling for you, Georgia. If we believe that that facility can work, then we want to see those jobs, so.
That's
Okay.
right. We all need them. Every county needs these jobs. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Mike.
Hello, everyone. I'll try to go through this quickly. I'll start off with the inspectors, what they have done as part of the compliance team. Happy to announce that we got filled our last position that we had open, air quality specialist position. Marie Espinoza Aguilar will be starting on May 19th.
Monday.
Yeah, this coming Monday. So that will be, the compliance team will be fully staffed at that point. It's been several months since that's been the case, so that'll be nice. The most recent hire, Christian Air, has gotten his training that's required, safety and technical training, to be out on his own. So he's been out knocking off a whole bunch of inspections. It's really good to see that, and you'll see it on, if you look through the inspector compliance packet, that Aiden, Palm, and Christian, especially those two, have done a whole bunch of inspections. Very nice to have staff increasing so that we can do the stuff that we were used to do when we were fully staffed, and now we're finally getting back there. So next meeting, I'll introduce you to Marie. Also, there's some training that's been going on, and it's been great. There's an agency called Westar. It's the Western States Air Resource Council. They're funded through a bunch of different grants and stuff, and they provide free training to, I believe it's 14 states and the agencies within that. And so we try to take advantage of it when we can, and we've been lucky enough to get some gas turbine and industrial boiler training, and then there's some other training coming up. So it's a great opportunity when they come around and are in our area for training. Engineers, they've been this month, they were at an EPA workshop. One of the few things EPA still is doing, but they got the okay for a workshop. We attended virtually and learned a whole lot more about permitting and modeling. And then the engineers were able to discuss some case studies so that we can see what other people are doing. Another good opportunity. Aaron Banley, engineer 2, he completed an advanced emission modeling course. So kudos to him. That modeling is very tough, very difficult, and the engineer staff does a great job with that. And then at the end of the packet, the compliance packet, we always have a engineer air permit report, tells the status of the NOCs of the permits and the AOPs. That's, if you look at it before and you look at it now, it's changed a little bit. We think it's easier to read. It tells a better chronology of the permits where they're at. So it definitely has been reworked, reformatted. Jennifer and Jeff and I worked on that, and we think it's easier to operate, to read through.
It starts on page 19 of of the compliance packet, is what Mike's talking about.
Yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to say, just real quickly on the PNWRE, as Jeff said, Lauren and Jennifer have done an excellent job. They've been required under the gun at the last minute to do stuff because that's just how things work. And they've done an excellent job. But then we also have to give Jeff Myers a lot of kudos. He's become an honorary engineer. He has clearly learned a whole lot about air permit engineering in this short period of time. I think we could hire him as an engineer, probably can't afford him, but he could step right in and do it because he has learned an awful lot very quick. Our engineers have thrown a bunch of terms at him and he's had to take those terms, learn them and then regurgitate them back to the other side and to the court stuff in a maybe a more plain manner. So Jeff has done excellent and he deserves the kudos for that.
You're the
Thank
first
you,
person to ever call legalese plain.
Well, yeah, well, as plain as you can make it. Yeah, that is very true. It's,
I'm not going to be teaching you guys Latin.
No.
Oh, yeah, please not, yeah. So, so those are kind of the two groups under compliance. The last couple things I wanted to mention was that the compliance team, started out doing our Title V inspections. We have 12 Title V sources, I believe. And, that's a busy, much more in-depth, inspection. And we've started in the Grace Harbor area. We've been at Paneltech and Westport Shipyard for source tests and our annual inspections, and so those will increase. You'll see them show up on our inspection list, and those ones are, you basically do one a day, and there's a lot of prep and follow up with those big Title V things, EPA oversight. So we're in that season now, so they're gonna be very busy doing some of those. The last thing I wanna do is give you a heads up for next month. Next month, Jeff and I will be putting forth a briefing memo about implementing a rule that we have in our rule. It's 6.19. It allows an investigation fee to be charged to facilities that put in equipment that we would require a notice of construction. But if they put that in ahead of time before they get a permit, there's a lot of investigation sometimes that happens. That rule's been in place. We haven't used it very often at all, rarely, because there was didn't formalize how we do it. And there was many reasons why we didn't do it. It's been there for a long time. We've kind of formalized it a little bit more in a SOP, and we're gonna start implementing that. It's another way to get costs from directly for source instead of trying to eat it through all these other programs. If they do something wrong and they need to, and they require us to spend a lot more labor, up to 3 times the amount of the NOC fee can be charged per that rule. And again, that rule's been approved by the board years ago. It hasn't changed for a long time. We're just gonna make it a little cleaner in our policy and implement that. So next month we'll be bringing a briefing memo forward for that. That's all I've got. I'm open for questions. And if you read through the packet later, you have questions, of course, you can always call me or email me also.
Questions for Mike? Oh, there, Greg. Look at you, back in the house.
Yeah, back inside. Hopefully I'm not still too loud. I'm used to projecting usually. Just one question for you, Mike. I saw under Jefferson County, I always, look for the small amount of action out here. We need jobs too. But I saw there was a complaint about asbestos, and I'm wondering, how does that work? What was, do you know that's particular?
I can, well, I'll address it generally first and I can go into more specifics later, but those complaints we actually get often. Somebody will see somebody knocking down a house or tearing out sheetrock or something, and they will complain that they're seeing dust go all over, or they'll say that they know that the person's not asbestos certified, so they'll call us with a complaint and then we'll investigate it, just like an illegal burn or a facility emitting black smoke. We'll go out there and make sure they're following the rules, because again, we implement the asbestos program in the area, because it is an air emission. So that's where they come from, and we do issue, if you look in the well, I don't know if it spells it out, but we'll issue violations on that on occasion. And if you have the exact one, I can tell you maybe a little more data about it, but that's where they come from.
Okay, I was just curious in general.
Pardon?
I was just curious in general. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And Rob, yes, it is the mom's laundry.
Yeah.
I said, because I handle that one, Greg. If you got more questions, I can answer those.
And that basically, it comes from a customer. A lot of times on the businesses, they go in there and they see people ripping stuff out, and they have some knowledge about what asbestos rules are and what they should be. So they check with us, and if they don't have a proper permit or not doing it right, we initiate an investigation to follow up on it. And Rob handled that one really well.
Awesome. Any more questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, sir. Rob? Not Odell.
Not Odell, regardless of what the placard here says. All right, so Hello, good morning. For those that don't know me, my name is Rob. I am Odell's basically backup for when she goes on vacation, which is, you know, she's enjoying Hawaii right now, I believe Maui. So she set these slides up for me, so hopefully I do them justice. Dan, go ahead, next slide, please. All right, so highlights for April. The big takeaway here is you'll see some gray blocks here for Lacey. What happened is we replaced the modem with an ecology modem, and we had some connectivity issues. We kept dropping or reverting ports. It has been fixed, luckily, but that's where that data loss occurred. Next slide.
Some pretty good air quality.
Yeah, pretty good. So for April, one of the biggest things that we did this month is a trip up to Chicken Peak and Bahokis Peak. I'm sure many of you are aware that the Chicken Peak is going through some power issues, you know, more specifically the lack of power. So we're working on finding a temporary location. Bahokis Peak is about 6-ish miles as the crow flies north of Chicken Peak. We went out there with some tribal staff as well as some EPA staff. We'll get some slides here in a little bit. But for the Chicken Peak site, Odell and I basically finished winterizing the trailers. What that entailed is just ripping down tripods with intakes and stuff like that to just kind of prep the site for a hibernation, if you will. We did meet with 2 folks from the EPA. They actually got authorized travel to come up there with us. So they were up there for 2 days. Odell and I were up there for 1 day. And like I said, I'll cover that in the next slide here. Basic site visits up at Port Angeles, Port Townsend, Aberdeen, as well as the Lacey visit, like I mentioned earlier. Just doing the quarterly ethylometer checks as well as the BAM and the ethylometer. Odell also installed our seasonal ozone right before she left. Dealt with some issues there. A literal bug or a spider or something like that was in the intake line, which was kind of skewing her results, but they fixed it with some help from John out of ecology. And that site is up and operational now, so you should see some of that data as you go to the air now map or the air quality maps. We also got 4 SenseWAs. That's the low cost PM sensor that ecology has made. Currently, we're templating them down there in the cities in these respective counties. And there's some rumors that we're gonna get probably like 3 or 4 more sighting criteria. Will be Odell and I going out and trying to find other locations. If you have recommendations, I would encourage you to reach out to Odell or myself. You know, if there's an area that kind of needs a little love as far as low cost sensor goes, that might be something that we could help facilitate. And then lastly, we also got the Quinault Tribe's nephelometer up and running. We, as an agency, do not maintain that. Our relationship, I believe, is just hosting them as far as the internet connectivity and power stuff goes. But you'll see that populated on the air quality map as well. Next slide, Dan. So this is the Hocus Peak. There you see Sarah Waldo. So Sarah Waldo and Joey Richardson from EPA Region 10 came out to visit with us. This is just looking at siting criteria for the site. There are specific criterion that need to be met in order to be a site like Chicken Peak is, excuse me. And Odell wanted me to pass along to everybody here that the EPA is, you know, they're very, very serious about getting Chicken Peak up and running. It's crucial not only for the state, but for the country as a whole, for the background, you know, pollutant data. So they are doing what they can with the powers that they still have left, I guess, and the monies that they have left to help facilitate getting this issue resolved, either through moving physically to Bahokis or getting power back up at Chicken Peak. Next slide. So there is my information. If you have any questions, hopefully I can answer them. If not, I will pawn them off to Odell for next month. So thank you.
One thing, if I could just add, I think where things stand with the move from Chica to Bohicas, it's with the Makah Tribal Council. I think they'll be looking at that in the coming weeks. I know it was hard to get this on their agenda, but I think they'll be looking at this and hoping we get the approval to move the site. And again, one of the questions is it a permanent move or is it just a temporary move? But we've got a draft, we've got a memorandum of agreement drafted, but at some point that would come back likely to the board for approval. So again, more on that in the coming months, but right now the step is to get approval from the Makah Tribal Council.
Any questions for Rob? Rob, with this, so the sense was, as we add them, does that start showing a new line?
Yeah, so it'll
on your-
be, I believe like the nephelometer sites are showing up as a square
Okay.
on the air map, depending on the air map too. I think the sense will show up as like a triangle
Okay.
on the thing.
But on your monthly report, does it, like, if we had another one in Thurston County, would it blend into the Lacey line, or would it become a separate line?
That is a good question.
It's-
I'm not gonna guess.
Okay.
So it's a separate line. So
Okay.
Dan, if you could bring the monitoring slides back up, and because we've got one of those in
They're already there.
Forks.
Okay, got
We've
it.
got
Oh,
one
yeah,
in
we do.
Forks.
Okay.
And so you'll see that on the monitoring slide, so all of these sense-wise will show up. And as Rob indicated, if you look at the ORCAA monitoring map, it shows not only our nephelometers, which are a particular shape, but then the sense-wise show up, I think, as squares.
Okay,
So it's flipped.
okay, that's fine, Dan. We can all find it in the report in
Yeah.
our agenda. You don't
Sorry
need to
about
change
that. I
it.
closed it
I
out.
saw the report, and now I get it. Okay, thank you. Because I think it's just really cool to be able to have, we have so many layers now with the nephelometer and the purple air, and then adding. the
And they're
sense
pretty accurate. So at the Lacey site, we have a purple air, we have a sensoir, and we have the nephelometer as well as the BAM and the ethelometer. And it, all the data are pretty
You can
consistent.
correlate everything.
Yeah, so it's,
Nice.
good experience.
Okay. Anything else for Rob? Thank you, sir. Dan?
So I will note, as Rob alluded to, the sense-wise are showing up on our website now since I think I reported last month with our fantastic web design contractor. They were able to transfer the draw from the EPA site to ecology site to get the data back from our site. So our website does have the Forks monitor, and as those sense-wise go online, they will show up on the map on our website. So that's a good thing, and it's something we've actually benefited because Spokane Regional Clean Air did this first. They were one of the first agencies to deploy SenseWA, and so they actually paid a little more to Rhizome Collaborative to figure out how to get the data draw from ecology rather than EPA. Since we're using the same contractor, Rhizome already had the information in hand, so we were able to do that at a very reduced cost. So that's something in the future, I think, because now Rhizome designed Spokane's website, our website, Benton Clean Air's website, and they're now working with Northwest Clean Air. I think we're going to look at ways that we can all share costs when it benefits all 4 or 5 agencies that are using them. Because actually Lane in Oregon, Lane Regional Air Pollution Authority in Oregon is also looking at them. So we've got a really good partnership, and the fact that this contractor is very well versed now in the air quality agency role really benefits all of us. So we want to make sure nobody's carrying the load by themselves. That said, I'm going to jump forward. Last week, I say I'm jumping forward. I'm going to look back to last week's Air Quality Awareness Week. Thank you. I know, Jim, you shared some of our posts online. Thurston Health Department, Jefferson County Health Department reposted and shared some of our social media. Just looking at the numbers, Nextdoor remains one of our most important ways to reach our communities. Our reach through Nextdoor, we hit on average 5,000 or 6,000 views per post on Nextdoor Last week daily, we were averaging over 7,000 views or hits on pages for people. So our reach there is great. In comparison, the post about today's board meeting reached 3,000. So people were much more interested in Air Quality Awareness Week than our Board of Directors meeting, which doesn't surprise me, but we know we've got pretty good engagement there. On Facebook, previously we haven't done a lot on Facebook, so our followers and our reach was pretty limited. We were averaging about 150 views per post. We're now up to between 650 and 700 views per post, so a 5 or 6 time increase since we've been posting more regularly for the past 9 months. So we expect to see that continue to grow, especially with the content we're getting from the resource sharing service that we've talked about in the past, Echo Northwest. Again, with the Rhizome Collaborative, they won that contract with Puget Sound Clean Air. Now looking forward, this coming weekend is the Grays Harbor Home and Garden Show out in Elma. We'll be out there with multiple staff attending that. We'll be answering questions about whatever issues of concern people have. Outdoor burning, asbestos tend to be the biggest one. Indoor burning with wood stoves. I'm sure being in Grays Harbor, we'll get some questions about PWNRE. So if that comes up, our staff is well equipped to handle that and talk about the appeals process. Let's see, we also, just going through the communications report, I'm not going to cover everything there. I will note, I think that the Shelton School District work I've really enjoyed, and I will note that I'd love to expand that to other school districts. If you folks want to share it with your school districts, and let me know. But I am serving on the Shelton Careers and Technical Education Advisory Committee on STEM work for the school, so providing some feedback on the science programs and getting out into 3 or 4 classes per year at Shelton High School. And they're actually very interested in having a high school internship, which is kind of a misnomer. It's a 20-hour maximum. Kids come out and basically job shadow and learn about careers. They can do it freshman through senior year. Each year they have to do something different, so it gives them a chance to explore different careers and job opportunities in the field that they're interested in. So we'll be talking about that and figuring out what would make sense for job shadowing, whether it's following me and some of the communications work, or Odell and research, or air monitoring and data processing, or even our inspection team maybe doing something along with them. But a lot to work out there, but they're very interested in that. Wood smoke reduction grant, I've mentioned we are fully expended last month. Still wrapping that up, but today we did get the notice from Ecology that they've released the new guidelines for next biennium's grant. Just got that like an hour and a half ago, so I haven't looked at it. But the state budget did include the same level of funding as last year, so $4 million for the state. Hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but it's anticipated it will be. So that's why the grant cycles or the grant has been out there. And next month, during the board meeting, I will provide an update on the history of this program. But just as a teaser, I'll note that since 2011, we've done over 900, or I think 950 plus wood stove removals in our jurisdiction, mostly in Thurston County, because that was the initial area. And that's estimated to be a reduction per year of over 75 tons of particulate matter.
Nice job, man.
So and I do want to quickly thank Georgia. I got your email this morning about introducing me to Rose and your communication staff. So really appreciate that, and I will make contact with her this afternoon if I can.
Any questions for Dan? All right, thanks for keeping us
I-
out there. Oh,
I
go
did
ahead.
forget to note, June 5th, it's in your board packet. I will be participating in the Thurston Summer Weather Hazards Seminar as well, representing the smoke and air quality concerns for summer season. So I've done the same thing for the past several years for Thurston, as well as working with Jefferson County Health. So I haven't heard from Jefferson County this year, but I anticipate something similar up there. And so if your counties, again, have that kind of event, looking at summer heat, summer smoke events, summer wildfire concerns, we'd love to be a part of it.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan? All right, hearing none. Tyson, anything else?
Yeah, I'll make this quick. Just some minor updates. So accounting functions are going smoothly. I'm getting really comfortable in the finance position here at ORCAA. Just a heads up, we do plan on bringing to the board to our June 11th board meeting an update to the P&P manual. And these updates are in response to changes to a number of positions moving from non-exempt to exempt. So that's a new change for us. Some updates on building operations and maintenance. Happy to report that we have hired a maintenance technician, Robert Moody.
Perhaps a familiar name?
Yep. He was the ORCAA compliance manager. He's a familiar face here at ORCAA, so we're really happy to have him back. He's bringing a wealth of knowledge regarding woodworking, framing, and just general know-how with fixing things. So we're excited to start knocking off some of those items on our to-do list regarding the building. We selected a finalist for the installation of EV charger. We hope to start beginning work on that later this year, sometime in June. And what else? So following up on last month's report of a water leak, we have fixed that. It was located underneath the building. It was a pretty minor fix. Fingers crossed that was the primary leak. So we will see. Of course, we can always reach out to the city of Olympia to see if our meter readings have reduced. They should. Other than that, Space 103 still remains vacant. Still looking at expanding our advertisement reach into different online outlets. That's going to be it for me. So,
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Tyson? All right. Thanks for keeping the building full. And getting the water leak fixed. That's a big deal. Okay, so then that takes us to the first ever board member roundtable. So Georgia, we see that you're having some audio issues, so maybe you'll go out and come back in and there's something to see if it helps you. Thanks for letting us know. But want to open it up. There's no real guiding principles here, but it seems to work out in most every other board I'm on. So things to share from your purview, from your jurisdiction that are either ORCAA or air related or something that would be interesting or touch point for the whole region. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? I almost always have something for good of the order and I have nothing today. So anyone else? Okay, well, that's a great try. But really just think of, oh, there you go, Greg, come on.
Oh, I'm always happy to throw something in. You know, I don't know if I have something absolutely pertinent, but I'll talk about an effort we're going through. You know, Jefferson County is very rural, you know, like most of our counties here. And we're working really hard with one of our few industrial areas to bring sanitary sewer to it. We've had some focus groups and I just, I wanted to share, I guess, with this group of policymakers, especially that I think focus groups can be a really good way of engaging stakeholders, kind of trying to find the appropriate time for public engagement is something I've struggled with in my role. Often it's like blue sky thinking where we end up, with pea patches at a transfer station or a thumbs up, thumbs down when the comp plan is ready and you really are already there. So kind of as we develop a plan for bringing infrastructure into the Glen Cove industrial area, which is near the Port Townsend Paper Company in Jefferson County, sitting down with the property owners who've got, many of them, all of them in the focus groups actually had bought their land from the same person whose grandson was one of the other property owners there. So it's a very,
Wow.
decades and decades of empirical experience and a lot of distrust of the government. And I think it was a pretty positive experience. And then I'll also share that, and we have plans for, bringing in the Port Townsend sewer that would really unlock that landward, basically, with developing interpretation of GMA by Commerce. And then the other thing I'll share is there's just a lot of transition at Jefferson County, like elsewhere. I actually threw my hat in the ring for the county administrator position as well. And we have a new county administrator, but it is not me. So we did hire from internally our DCD director. So the good news is that I get to be with you guys for another year and a half as I finish out my term. So lots of other transitions too with our EDC and our PUD director, so general manager. So there's a lot of transition at the executive level in Jefferson County.
Sorry, Greg, but I'm glad we have you.
Yeah, no, it's I love being with you guys. So it's bittersweet, but so it goes.
Yeah. Okay, anything else from your community? Okay.
One thing, but then I'll just chime in is that staff did meet with Georgia, was it last week, I think, to plan the regional focus on Grace Harbor County. And so we will be visiting Pacific Veneer, a site in I think near Cosmopolis. Aberdeen Cosmopolis area on June 30th for the inspection. And so looking forward to that. We were initially planning on doing that at the July meeting, but since the July meeting's been canceled, we'll be doing that in August instead.
Okay.
Oh, and Georgia, since I'm talking to you now, Rob let me know that you should wear if you have safety shoes. So I don't know if you have steel-toed boots, but if you don't, let us know your size and we can try to see if we've got some that might fit you.
I don't know if I have steel-toed boots, but I promise not to wear my heels.
So bring Georgia back with her toes, okay?
All right, love that.
Great, anything else to share? Okay, then that will take us to go to the order, which I think is the same thing, so we might play around with the titling on the agenda. But just know that we want to hear from you. Like, I think this and the monthly sharing or the every other month sharing about our county is really trying to make sure that we have ongoing board engagement and relations between us besides just the ORCAA business. So my machine is telling me it's time to go home, but we have a little bit more business to do. So we're gonna have an executive session. Let me just check my clock here. Okay, so the board will now meet in executive session for up to 30 minutes to discuss the executive director's performance measures, contract, and compensation as allowed by RCW 42.3.110G. The board will be in executive session until 11:50 or sooner, at which time the regular session will reconvene. If the board is not expected to take any actions following the executive session. Hearing that, we're gonna go ahead and just have the board of directors for this one. And if we need to bring Jeff in, we can. So Dan, if you can help me move the Zoom through that, and I think Jeff's gonna leave me a mouse.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Okay, the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency Board of Directors is back from executive session to discuss compensation and performance of our executive director. We have no further action and no further agenda, so we are hereby adjourned. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.